This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City FC looks for their first road win of the season against Charlotte FC. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
You know, look, hey, there we are.
There
Hi,
we
Matty.
are.
How are you, man?
I'm doing very well, thank
Okay,
you. It's
yeah.
a beautiful day here.
It is. I remember we
I love this
looked at
stadium
the
as well.
forecast all weekend. It was supposed to just rain and rain and rain. My hair's sticking up here. Hold on a second.
Professional to the end. But yes, you are right. It was
Yeah.
95% certainty of rain. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I think then the weather forecast flipped yesterday, and it was a 2% chance of
Crazy.
rain.
We
The
had
only
a nice
rain we've
night.
got is some water in the AstroTurf down below us.
Yep,
So
and
yeah,
let's,
it's a beautiful
we
day.
get another look at it here. So they had been watering this end. This is the end where Rob Vertugian and the New York City FC keepers are warming up. That's Luis Barraza stretching on the post. If you can get a peek at that, look quite closely at him as he prepares for his 11th start. He's been in goal for each game. Nick Cushing pretty much said this week that Matt Freese will start in the U.S. Open Cup game. That's the next match after tonight, and that's Wednesday evening. That'll be at FC Cincinnati. Then it's the Derby, and then it's at Orlando on Wednesday. So it's these next few games are the first part of a compact schedule or the congestion that New York City's encountered this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that. The schedule is congested. It's when you need to use maybe not your whole squad, but you certainly need to use 20 to 22 players. I'm sure some players will start every single game, but that will be very minimal. And even the ones who do start the game may only play 60, 70 minutes in those games. I think we know from certainly yourself having spoken to Nick Cushing, Glenn, that there'll be a vast array of changes for the US Open Cup. I think that's fair to say. We don't know for definite, but the insinuations seem to be there that the likes of an Alfaro, the likes of a Matt Freese, those type of players who just haven't had the minutes under their belt, they will get starts. And I think rightly so as well. For me, that's what cup competitions are for, to either flood youngsters or to give experienced players who've been on the bench, give them the opportunity to start games. I think that's just the way to play it.
And I thought something interesting that they did, and I've heard other teams do this, and New York City's done it in the past. They played an 80-minute intra-squad scrimmage on Tuesday as part of training in order to start to prepare the bodies for this. Now, you'll hear Nick Cushing on the pregame show on the New York City FC network, which begins at 7:15, presented by Ford. It's a 10-minute plus exclusive that we have with Nick before every game. And he talks a little bit about, Tony Alfaro played 90 minutes, Richie Ledesma played 40 minutes,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So, and Alfaro, he made it sound like he might get his first start in a New York City uniform on that Wednesday night at Cincinnati. Didn't guarantee it, but he just insinuated it along with Matt Freese. But back to, we're talking about who's playing today and who's in the starting 11. Well, you can't, as someone who's followed the team closely, when, especially here in 2023, when Maxime Chenot, a healthy Maxime Chenot and a healthy Tyler Magno are both out of the 11. They're on the bench. I think you can look back to the tail end of last week's game against Toronto FC in Ontario, where Chenot and Magno went at it.
Yeah.
A lot of gestures. We saw one in particular that was screenshot. And so before we talk a little bit more about that, they're not in the 11. I did ask Nick Cushing on Thursday after training, just how it's gone with that situation. And here's what he said.
I think those moments make you as a team because they build relationships. You have to go through those moments to then go and reflect over them and then look at them and understand where the disconnect is. I think what we see is two guys that are really passionate and really care about the team and really want to win. And in the moment where it's not going so well, emotions run high, and we've spoken about it, we've fixed it. Will we have disagreements on the field again? Probably. You know, we had one with Santi and Maxi Morales last year, and everyone thought the team was broken, and then we got to an Eastern Conference final. So if it takes one argument for us to continue to finish third in the conference and get to a conference final, I'll take it.
And there's times where you don't really need to address it, but this one you needed to address, you felt?
Yeah, I just think ultimately it's the time it went on. You know, it was 3 minutes, and that's too long. That's something we know as a team, and we want. The identity we want as a team is, we want to have accountability and we want to have to, hold each other up to high expectations. But as a team, we do that off the field, in the dressing room, in the training centre. We don't do it on the field in a one-goal game where we're trying to get back into the game.
Yeah, so that was Nick Cushing addressing the situation, and although it hasn't been announced as a disciplinary move, obviously Chanot and Magno not starting today is a disciplinary move.
Absolutely. As Brian's mum said in The Life of Brian, he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. And they've been very naughty boys, and Nick addressed it to you yourself in the interview, and also he's addressed it by showing, maybe not quite the world, not everyone in the world is watching, but showing MLS and showing NYCFC fans that he's not going to put up with the disrespect for each other, not only each other, the disrespect shown between the pair, but the disrespect that then shows to the rest of their teammates, the disrespect that shows to the coaching staff, and the disrespect it shows to the fans watching on as well. I thoroughly agree with Nick. There will be other points, there'll be other arguments throughout the season, there'll be arguments on the training ground. It happened all the time in my career, not every single day, but there was punch-ups in training, there was punch-ups in the dressing room. But I've never ever, I played for 18 years professionally, I played for 4 years Division 1 college soccer, and I've never seen something go on for as long as that. And I think that Nick addresses that by saying it went on for 3 minutes. And I've seen those arguments happen, and there's pointing and gesticulating, and it happens for 20, 30 seconds, you forget about it. The skipper will pin both of you up, split you apart, and that will be the end of that. And if you want to have fisticuffs, if you want to have a punch-up after the game, then go ahead, sort it out as you see fit, but not to the watching public. Everybody saw it, and it's out of order. And as I say, it's disrespectful to each other and to everybody else associated with NYCFC. That's factual. It's disrespectful to everybody involved. And
not only that, 3 minutes on the pitch, but the Apple television cameras didn't pick it up, and we were here at the final whistle with the broadcast at Toronto, and it still carried on a bit after the final whistle as well. So I think that, again, we won't say much more about it because it's that extended debate, if you will, between the two is, what has caused, without an official announcement for Nick Cushing or anybody in the club, they've been disciplined and will not start today. There's nothing that our words can say here to discuss the matter that it hasn't been shown by Nick Cushing picking the team. We don't need to sand in it. They've been disciplined. Yes, it's not out there in the public knowledge. Nick Cushing hasn't come out and said they've been disciplined, but it's factual. You've got one of your best centre halves in the last 5 or 6 years, and you've got your DP, one of the most talented, if not the most naturally gifted footballer in your team, on the bench. So you would want those guys playing in your first team unless they behaved in the manner with which they did. And Nick Cushing has spoken, pictures, speak 1,000 words, and it is that picture. When you look down at the team sheet that we've got here, their names are that. So we're going to see Andres Jason start in place of Magno, it appears. And Alfredo Morales will come in. We assume he'll be in the midfield, and James Sands will move into left central defense. And because there was not a center back acquired during the transfer period, it's causing a bit of shuffling. So, it's impacting the team, and that's part of but you have to be strong in your discipline. I think when I first started coaching, it was one of the more difficult things to do because I want to win the game, so I'm putting my best players on the field. But ultimately, it works against you. when you're trying to develop a program, a culture, which is the word that's used so often these days. So you have to.
But Nick Cushion himself, he has to be firm. It's the players who've let everybody down. It's not Nick Cushion. I totally understand. I'm with you, Glenn. I wanted to win a game of tiddlywinks. So I like to think I was a born winner and hated losing. And they've let themselves down. They've let the team down. But also on the flip side, if I play devil's advocate, can't be any worse. And they've already been away from home this season. In a manner of speaking, they've only scored 2 goals. So try something different without Magno and Chanot. Of course you want Magno and Chanot playing. Of course you do. But I do think it becomes easier to change players for disciplinary reasons when things aren't going well. Let's be honest. They just lost the last away game to Toronto. Right. So changes may have happened anyway. They've made Nick Cushion's life very easy for him to be a disciplinarian when they're not playing well.
And they're on the bench, so they're available. And if they're needed in a particular scenario off the bench, then they're going to be utilized. So Barraza will start at goal. Brian Couffret at left back, so he's back in the 11. James Sands will be the captain. Thiago Martins and Tavon Gray is in for Micha Ilinic, so another change there. The midfield we assume will be Morales and Keaton Parks. And then Gabby Panetta is back. Didn't travel last week, but it was a minor injury. That's what was stated, and indeed, Pereira will start along with Jason and Santi Rodriguez with Ledesma in behind, and so that flexibility between those two and the false 9 is back for another try.
Yeah, and I think it has to. Even if Magno had played, I wouldn't want to see Magno playing as the number 9. I think he's proven the point that he's much more dangerous out on the left-hand side. He doesn't really want to play as the 9. Santi Rodriguez, when things are going well, he doesn't mind where he plays on the pitch. I think when you saw against Toronto last weekend when things weren't going well, I think you saw him getting visibly, maybe upset is too strong, but certainly frustration. You saw the frustration creeping in, and he would drop deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you end up with Ledesma and Rodriguez dropping back almost to being number 8s, and then they end up standing on the toes of Keaton Parks or James Sands or Keaton Parks and Alfredo Morales, as we assume it will be today. And that is a bit of a problem, but we've always known that. Nick Cushion knows that. Everybody associated with MLS and NYCFC knows that this team is not going to be at its best until it brings in a left-footed centre-half and a centre-forward. And we know that is what David Lee, the hierarchy, whoever else that includes, whether it's Brad Sims, the president, Nick Cushion, the rest of the coaching staff, other scouts, that's what they have in their sight line for when the transfer window reopens in July. And I think we know the manner of MLS and how easy it is to get into the playoffs, that you can afford to wait until you get right man. Don't just get somebody in just for the sake of it because you need a number 9. Wait till you've got the person that you want.
Well, we're happy to have you on New York City FC pregame live in New York City, going up against Charlotte FC, a team they've never beaten. Now, they've only played twice, but a season series sweep last year for Charlotte over New York City. Only the Philadelphia Union, the only other team to sweep New York City in those home and away games during the course of the season. I should give the bench for New York City. Maxime Chanot, we talked about Chanot. Gabe Siegel, Kevin O'Toole, who started last week. Cody Mizell at goal. Stephen Turnbull, Micha Ilinic, Tyler Magno, Matt Freese, and Justin Hacks. We've got 2 goalkeepers on the bench as well. So
2 goalkeepers and 2 right backs, which is quite unusual for a bench. And then no Alfaro, but I know Chanot's on the bench, so you assume Alfaro. I think we know that he's okay and physically fit and being saved.
Not on the injured list.
The assumption is being saved. Don't bother travelling. It's got a bit of flying, takes out your legs. Stay at home. Go to the gym.
He's not used to playing 90 minutes, so if he's going to be playing at Cincinnati,
exactly.
Need him. Ilinic, I anticipated he would start this match, so I sat down with him this week to do a long-form interview, which is on my podcast, On Frame, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify. You should listen because he's an interesting young 18-year-old, right? Precocious, confident. He's transparent. He's so I wanted to just play a short clip. Here's a kid that grew up in a village of 300 people, which, that's with a river. And I asked about the river because I grew up with a river pretty much in my backyard. We were in a boat, and so he played a lot at the river, close to his home. But we got into this thing about coming to New York City and choosing New York City FC and how all that transfer stuff went. And there were more than a couple of teams that were interested in him.
When I started to play seniors, I play half year, and then was summer transfer window. I had it was Slavia Prague, Dinamo Zagreb, and Lugano. This was 3 good options, but my club didn't let me because they thought that I need some little bit more time, and I think they made the right decision. And now in the winter, I had, like you said, Hellas Verona, I had Sparta Praga, Lugano also, Sturm Graz, and New York. When I got called from here, you can ask my agents or everyone. I also got a presentation from Citigroup. One guy from Palermo, Luciano Zoragno, he come in Ljubljana, and he made me a presentation. And I also made a video call with David Lee. So after this moment, I was just okay, that's it. I made a decision. So
the dollar figures sometimes speak, but what outside of that made the decision for you? What were some of the factors that you chose New York City over these other clubs?
For me, it was money. I'll be honest with you, if I would go to Hellas Verona, I would have better money. But I'm 18, I don't have a need to watch for money. It's the last thing I'll watch now. I came here, we obviously know City Football Group. It's a strong part of my decision. And also, I don't know when will be the options to go to New York and to play for this city. So I was okay, let's give it a try. And I think so far it's so good.
And then you feel City Football Group in New York City will help you develop so that maybe one day you can get back to Europe. Is that
exactly
part of it?
To be honest, my wish is to go back to Europe, but I'm not worried if this will happen in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I just want to develop, and we'll see where it will end.
So there he is, Mitja Ilinic, 18 years old. He's on the bench today, but he has started a majority of the matches that he's been available. And in essence, we feel, again, this is never stated by the coach, that he's, for the time, beaten Tavon Gray out of the position. Gray can play central defense too, and it won't be shocking if we see him pushed into that area, especially if they ever go to 3 at the back. He trained at central defense a little bit on Thursday too to Tavon Gray, but today he's starting at right back. But what stood out to you about Ilinic in that clip?
Well, I think he said what we know as an 18-year-old. You don't really have that many overheads. Money's not that important as an 18-year-old kid. Believe you me, he'll soon realise that money is important to get by in life.
Yeah.
But right now, it's all about that want and desire to play in New York City. And not everybody will agree with me, but that's the beauty of City Football Group as well, isn't it? David Lee didn't even need to go and do the presentation. The Palermo guy, who is part of the City Football Group, is much closer, so he went to give the presentation. And not to get him to go to Palermo, but the Palermo guy, whoever he may have been, whatever, general manager, sporting director.
Yeah, Palermo, one of the satellite clubs.
One of the satellite clubs. But he wasn't trying to get him to Palermo. He's trying to say, this is the City Football Group. Yes, we're part of it, but we don't want you to come play for us. But we suggest you look at this.
Yeah.
If you play well for New York City, Manchester City is just a hop, step and a jump over the Atlantic Ocean away. If you prove you've got the ability, we've already got the likes of Zach Steffen, who's gone to Manchester City. Obviously, Jack Harrison from this football club specifically has gone over there. We know that there is, or there can be, that transition from MLS and more importantly from NYCFC to Manchester City. And also Nick's Diskerud as well, right? He did make the transition way back in the day.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
I know. I know.
He was on the New York City payroll for quite some time.
Yeah.
I don't always have a beat as to exactly how all that works. And then another guy out of the City Football Group who's been loaned to a satellite team, Girona in Spain, Tati Castellanos, 7 goals in his last 4 matches. Matty does a funny thing. We can talk about it. Everybody needs, because Tati gets a lot of yellow cards. So Matty and I have a little bit of a wager. I said he would score more goals than have yellow cards. Where are we at right now?
I think it's 12-11. 12-11 in favour. 12 goals, 11 yellow cards. So, yeah, it's tight. It's always going to be a tight one.
We're gonna let Tati know. And Tati has to come. When you pay up, we got to invite him to the dinner as well. And And one final thing I wanted to mention, we've got to close down, get ready for our pregame show at 7:15, NYCFC.com/radio, and the NYCFC app and the TuneIn app is how you can watch all the games. You listen to the game. Sorry, you can watch the game and listen. That sync up. This sync up. That should be.
This is
we should have
important
like Chris Sakonis who will do our halftime.
We need that scrolling, maybe a little link along the bottom.
we need him to create something for us on this. But the coronation. You're my English friend, Sam Cook in our communications department asked if I was getting up at 6 a.m. for the coronation. I said I am not. My wife did. She enjoys those pomp and circumstance,
pomp and ceremony. Yeah.
But Matty is such a Liverpool supporter, so watching the game, and at Anfield, they booed and hissed over the national anthem that was being played at every Premier League game to honor the coronation of King Charles, and the Liverpoolians would have none of it.
No, the Liverpoolians have always been very left-wing. They've always been anti-monarchy. They've always had a sense of being disrespected by the South and by the media of London. That dates back to a long, long way, but certainly the Hillsborough disaster, when the Liverpool fans got blamed for that disaster. It since came out, the Hillsborough, when everybody looked into it, it came out, it transpired, obviously, that it was nothing to do with the Liverpool fans. It was a policing problem, South Yorkshire police problem that had been swept under the carpet. But they're an anti-monarchy. Everyone's allowed their own opinion. I think everybody told Liverpool Football Club not to play the national anthem. Everybody knew what was going to happen. You're entitled to your own opinion. If you just boo and hiss and you don't do anything else, there's nothing wrong with that. If you start throwing things, if you start, if there's banners that you don't need to see because they're using abusive words, fine. But boo and hiss, I've got no problem with that. I'm not a massive fan of the royal family myself. And even though we're in the Queen's City in Charlotte, what a link.
Well, my wife and I have been watching the Harry, Meghan Markle documentary. Some interesting stuff there. But listen, that's it. No politics here on Pregame Live. Although I had to initiate that a little bit just because I was like, wow, they're doing that. But that's such a. We'll leave that. We've got a football match, a soccer match coming up here on another busy MLS Saturday night. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina for this one at the Bank of America Stadium, where Charlotte, and they're struggling. They're second to last place in the Eastern Conference. New York City enters the night in 5th place. So we'll have all the live commentary for you. We'll follow what's going on in the other games. Kind of fun. It's added a little entertainment to the broadcast because we can see. And I'll tell you, as the season progresses, when we're in the final third of the season, it's going to become even more fun to do that. All right, I'm Glenn Crooks, Matty Lawrence. Great to have you with us, and enjoy the game, everybody.